Hello Mallards, it is Wednesday and I just got back from seeing Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves. And I thought, yeah, I've got a lot to say about this movie. I'm gonna be really excited to have like a put together review of everything and how the movie went. That's out the window now. I'm just still sort of riding the like, oh my gosh, this was amazing high. So I can't promise that any of these thoughts will be in any sort of order, will make any sort of sense. And it's largely just gonna be me saying, oh my goodness, it was so good and I loved it so much, which admittedly is kind of my brand, so you shouldn't be surprised. I am a fan. I am fanatical about things. I also am generally speaking a positive person, and I firmly believe in talking about things that you enjoy. I feel like too many people spend time reviewing things that they didn't like. And that is not the energy I want to put out into the world. So I want to talk about things I loved and things that I loved this entire film. This is what I have waited for Dungeons and Dragons films to be like. And I have seen, I think, all of the official Dungeons and Dragons films, if not all of them, then most of them. And they have largely been kind of fun, kind of silly, not necessarily that great of a showcase of actual gameplay or actual characterizations. Like sometimes they just veer like too far into fantasy and they don't feel like Dungeons and Dragons at all, or sometimes they veer too far into like being about people who play the game and then they run into other sorts of problems. This felt like I was watching a campaign. Like it was from start to finish very well done. I loved the overall narrative structure and the way that they sort of bookended things. And the most chef's kiss thing for sure is the combat and spell work. Like it felt like a Dungeons and Dragons game. The spells were instantly recognizable. They worked in ways that I, as an avid player of Dungeons and Dragons, expected them all to work for the most part. This druid can really wild shape an awful lot more than most can. But you know what? Everybody gets to have an innate ability, and also like house rules, I'm totally fine with it. But a lot of it was like very recognizable, really felt on brand. And my favorite thing, and this is something that William, who is somebody who DMs for me, and I went to the movie with him and his wife and his kids. Like William, Tracy, and I all agreed that one of the best things is that combat actually happens like boom, 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 really fast. Like everybody actually makes a move within 6 seconds, which is how Dungeons and Dragons is played. Like in a round, everybody makes a move and every round is 6 seconds. So like combat goes really, really fast. It takes forever when you're sitting around the table and like going one at a time with people making their decisions. But man, the main fight in this was so good. And it really had that feel of like, clearly people have initiative, but everybody is moving so quickly because the whole round is happening within those 6 seconds. And there's trade-off and clear, like playing off of each other and working together and like surrounding and flanking, like all of the things you expect from a Dungeons and Dragons combat was there on the screen. And I really, really appreciated that. I also felt like they played into the characters' powers really, really well. And they played into the archetypes in kind of a fun and interesting way, a little bit different than like the cliches, but with some of the things that you would still sort of expect. I also teared up during this film. Like it got towards the end and there's a moment, and when you watch the film, you'll know what I'm talking about. And I was sitting next to Tracy and I look over and she has tears in her eyes and I had tears in my eyes, and we were both like, oh, wow. The silly Dungeons and Dragons movie was not supposed to make me cry, but here we are in this moment where I'm gonna cry. And I cannot say enough about the performers in this. Everyone looks like they're really enjoying themselves, and everyone really threw themselves into who their character was and what their character was about. Like, I'm willing to bet that if I asked those performers the backstories of their characters, like beyond the film, they'd actually have detailed Dungeons and Dragons style backstories. Like I feel like every character was lovingly crafted and there's so much we don't know about them, which has also been a problem that I have had with some previous Dungeons and Dragons films, where I felt like one of the things that people really spend a lot of time in when they play D&D is building a backstory, and that other characters didn't necessarily have this. And this had everyone's like favorite, oh my goodness, tragic backstory. And like everybody's got a tragic backstory, because I don't know if you know this, but it's a trope in D&D that every person brings a tragic backstory. And really, every character in this film has a bit of that tragic backstory going on. And I think that that's great. Not that they're necessarily trying to one-up each other with it, like sometimes players are, but it definitely had that feel. They leaned hard into a lot of the funny things. They also turned a lot of things on its head. There is a very, very fat, like super overweight dragon that like slides and rolls, and it's so funny and just so unexpected and delightful. I laughed so hard, and so did everyone else in the theater. I laughed a ton in this film in general. It's got pithy dialogue that was really enjoyable, and then they really like lean hard into some of the funny Dungeons and Dragons stuff in a way that I think shows great love and care for the source material, but kind of flipping things on its head. And I really enjoyed that. And again, I can't say enough about the fight. Like there was like a mage hand battle. That was also so good. Like if you enjoy Dungeons and Dragons, if you play Dungeons and Dragons, I think that you will absolutely be thrilled by this film. If you don't play Dungeons and Dragons, I think there are a few things that you will miss, but I think that this film brings enough lore into itself that you will absolutely understand what's going on. Like there'll be some things, like the Displacer Beasts still show up, and if you do not know what that means, you will be caught off guard by its abilities. If you have never played Dungeons and Dragons and don't recognize a gelatinous cube, you'll be like, I do not understand what's happening here. But they do sort of explain as they go. Like you can see the effects that a gelatinous cube has. You eventually see the Displacer Beast's power and you understand how that works. And somebody even calls it a Displacer Beast. The Mimic is never explained, but it needed to be there. And it is vital to the enjoyment for people who play Dungeons and Dragons. And so yeah, it just really checked all of the boxes. And on top of that, had stunning performances by all of the cast. Not that I'm surprised by that, because I think that everybody who was cast in this film is very talented, but I really enjoyed watching them all really, really go for it. And I thought that the villain arc was kind of fun. And my favorite thing is that it is very much a heroic ending, but still leaves the wider world, which we are introduced to, open for more adventures. And I would watch another one. If you've already seen the film, let me know what you thought. If you're going to see the film, hopefully I didn't spoil too much. I was trying to be pretty spoiler light, because I think that everyone should see this movie and enjoy it with an open mind. I will maybe go again in the theaters. And if I can't do that, I'm definitely going to purchase this film when it comes out, because I definitely want to watch it several times. It's so fun. And I will see you tomorrow.